Welcome to Real Estate and Murder, a podcast about real estate and murder.
I am Amy Brockbank.
And I am Sarah Brager. We are both licensed real estate agents in the state of Utah who have a common fascination with true crime.
We are here to tell you stories of murder amongst the real estate community. It might be an agent, it might be a client, it might be an undetected serial killer.
When it comes to real estate crimes, some are predators and some are prey.
We just want to issue a trigger warning. The content of these cases can be difficult to hear from time to time, and please listen with care.
All right, Amy, welcome back.
Hello. I'm excited.
Are you?
Yeah, Danny's here with us. It's just
I love
it's so
it when
great.
Danny's in studio.
We were just talking off,
mic?
Mic? I was off camera, but hopefully we're not recording. So, anyway, that there's a different energy because we love looking at Danny's face as we tell the story. We can imagine our audiences, so his mouth will drop or he'll giggle or something.
Yeah, we love it when Danny's here. So we are going to wrap up. We're finishing in part 2 the story of the death of Moriah Wilson.
Yeah.
And we left off at the end of part 1. You absolutely have to listen to it, of course. I mean, as always, right?
Yeah.
However, we left off by mentioning at the end that Caitlin Armstrong is a realtor. She's probably not currently licensed. I'll just say it like that. But she is known to have a real estate career in Austin, Texas. She is the realtor subject of our case today.
Well, not only that, but her and Colin had a company where they would flip houses. So they would renovate vintage trailers, which I don't know what that means, but whatever.
Like campers that you renovate to be
I guess.
Yeah, and then worked apparently in mid-century homes. There's honestly not a lot of information out there about their business because I'm sure to the kind of like your average consumer media, it's not that interesting. But Amy and I want to know everything about that part of her. But she is a realtor. She has a business with Colin, her off and on again, live-in boyfriend. They flip houses. I did want to see if I could find a little bit more about Caitlin's career. Although, let's note, she's very young.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually know her birthday. Let me back that up a second here.
Well, Moriah was very
25.
young.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a week from being 26.
Moriah was very young. If you listen to part 1, I said Caitlin Armstrong's birthday. We share a birthday on November 21st. And she was born in 1987. So she's actually only a year younger than I am, which means she's not young. But Moriah was young.
Yeah.
So, and in terms of, I guess, being an entrepreneur, you could consider that young. But anyway, I wanted to see if I could find out more about Caitlin Armstrong's real estate career. And there's not a lot out there besides what she did with Colin. However, according to Realtor.com out of Austin, Texas, Caitlin Armstrong was, at least her license was registered with a well-known brokerage, right? A name that most of us recognize in real estate, Sotheby's International Realty. This particular brokerage is called Cooper Sotheby's International. However, this linked that Caitlin Armstrong was a realtor at this brokerage. It does not state if there's another Caitlin Armstrong maybe that has been licensed there before that's different.
Yeah.
So I can't confirm 100%. However, if you search through the source material on this Caitlin Armstrong that we're discussing, Realtor.com ties her to this Sotheby's International Realty. If that is wrong, please, someone from that brokerage, feel free, reach out. I'd actually love to talk to you anyways. But that's the last tie I could find about her real estate career.
Correct it.
But Caitlin Armstrong's a realtor on the run.
Okay.
So let's get back.
I have a question for you, Sarah.
Oh, man.
And I was going to ask you, I had mentioned that I was going to ask you something, and then I thought, no, I'll save it for part 2.
Okay.
Okay. So, 2018, Caitlin Armstrong goes into a medical spa or whatever it is, gets a service, a Botox service, several $100s, skips out on her bill, and a warrant is issued. They arrest her based on the warrant in 2022 in May. So for 4 years, she's had this outstanding warrant. How did she get her real estate license?
I mean, we know. So I know what you're setting me up for here, because here's a discussion we've actually had before.
Yeah.
So Amy and I are licensed real estate agents in the state of Utah. And we know the requirements for not only getting a license, but how to maintain your license
every 2
inside
years.
and out.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah, every 2 years, we have to go through re-background checks, re-fingerprinting, re-everything. We have to, even if we get a traffic ticket, we have to, report that.
Right. So let me throw something at you, though. The fact that, so yes, as agents in Utah, we have to be relicensed or renew our license every 2 years. Along with that, you have 18 hours of required CE courses, so continuing education courses. We have to take an ethics class, right, as a part of that cycle.
Sarah has to take it next week, you guys. She's looking forward to it so much.
As every
3
agent
hours.
does. The deadline for me to turn it in is December 31st. It's currently December 12th today. So per realtor fashion, we're always doing it last minute. But I do keep up on my CE. Okay, I'll just say that. But in the state of Utah, the fact that you have to now be re-fingerprinted as a part of that process is newer. It happened in the amount of time that I have been licensed, which in, the spring of this year would be 6 years. Because I remember when it came out. So in the past, at least in Utah, in order to get your license, you had to be fingerprinted. They did a background check and you had to pass your test, right? And do your school hours. And somewhere in that time, pretty quickly, so I would say by 2021, because that's when I would have had my first renewal, they had then changed the practice to make it every time you renew, you have to be re-fingerprinted, and they check your background again, which is a good thing, because literally this whole podcast is founded on real estate agents that either murder or who get murdered. So,
well, and Todd Colehep was grandfathered in, quote unquote, to, I can't remember, is he North or South Carolina?
South Carolina.
Into their law or whatever. So he got away with a lot of stuff that he normally wouldn't have been able to get away with.
Right. Todd Colehep, serial killer, second episode that we ever recorded. Go back and listen to it. It's one of my favorites. But so, I mean, my short answer and a long way of saying it is in Austin, Texas, I don't know what their requirements are for being re-fingerprinted. It's possible that a minor warrant like that just wouldn't be brought to the attention of the real estate board. Also, I don't know how often their cycles are. Also, Caitlin Armstrong is referenced as a realtor in all of the material that you read about her, but there's no information about her career. So it's possible that at some point between, a warrant out for her arrest in 2022, she did not renew.
Yeah.
And wasn't an active real estate agent, right? All of those are possibilities.
Yeah. I mean, I know if I was having the question, maybe parts of our audience would, because, they're like, wait a minute, 4 years, you have a warrant.
It's a valid question, especially for the context of this podcast where we tell these stories. So basically what we're saying is agents in Austin, Texas, please reach out. Give us an answer. Email, text me, save me in your phone as Christine Wall. Whatever you got to do, I want the answer to this question. So really good point, because, and to circle it back, real estate agents that are professionals who are in people's homes, showing people's homes, interacting with clients that they're just meeting, cold calls, we need to be safe as well as the public needs to be safe.
Yeah.
And so that, and go back and listen to Todd Colehep, because there are agents that somehow slide under the radar. And this is one of them. So let's get back to the story here, because we're back in May. It's May 18th. Okay. Police have figured out in Austin, Texas, that Caitlin Armstrong took a flight out of Austin on the 17th of May.
So her flight she took out on May 14th.
Did she have peanuts on the plane, Amy?
Maybe she was on a flight that they don't serve peanuts and they serve pretzels.
She did. So I'm saying we're on May 18th, though, because now Caitlin Armstrong is about to take another flight.
Yeah.
Okay. So May 14th, she had taken a flight just a day after she had sold her 2012 Black Cherokee.
Yeah.
Amy, how many miles did it have on it?
I don't know.
Okay. So it's May 18th. And police are now looking for Caitlin. She has left the state and she's not supposed to, right? She's a person of interest in a murder.
Yeah, they have a search warrant for her. Or a
for
warrant.
Her personally.
Yeah. No.
They've executed a search warrant at her place of residence where she lived with Colin Strickland. They found weapons that are tied to her. Where is Caitlin?
Yeah.
So Caitlin she flies from Austin, Texas to LaGuardia, New York. And what police do know about New York is that Caitlin has a sister who lives in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Now, Amy, what is Caitlin's sister's name?
Christine.
We could not get more creative than that, could we?
Christine Armstrong.
So, all right. Caitlin Armstrong is now in New York, but she's just there for one night. So police actually interview her sister in New York. I'm assuming it was, they contacted local enforcement there to interview her, right? And Caitlin had, in fact, spent the night at her sister Christine's home.
Christine is like totally oblivious to what's even happening. She was like, my sister came into town. She called me. I picked her up from the airport. Like, we visited. Totally. And then I drove her back to the airport and dropped her off. And she was headed back home to Austin. Like, I mean, she literally thought nothing was wrong.
If I'm going to do murder, I'm probably not going to tell people
You're
either.
Pretty close to your sister, though. Like,
I still wouldn't tell her.
You don't think?
No, I can't take the risk. She'd rat me out. We're only half siblings. I don't know. It's risky. I'm just kidding. But, okay, in all reality, yeah, Christine didn't know what was happening back in Austin, but she does know it was a really quick flight and was under the impression that Caitlin was kind of like laying over, sort of a thing. So, okay, now police we got to redirect. We got to go back to the airport. Where is Caitlin? And they do find, of course, footage. You guys, it's 2024. Well, in this story, it's 2022. But there's cameras everywhere. There's footage everywhere. They see Caitlin Armstrong walking through the airport, and she's carrying a yoga mat.
Yeah.
So she hops a flight to San Jose, Costa Rica. However, there's no record on the flight, like the roster. What do they call it? The docket?
Yeah, I thought it was a manifest.
Yeah, the manifest. There you go. There's no Caitlin Armstrong on the manifest. But there is a Christine Armstrong.
Yeah. Kay, wild. She steals her sister's passport. Her sister had no idea. The police are asking her, did you give your passport to your sister? And she was like, no.
So Caitlin looks at least enough like her sister to get by the TSA agent.
To be fair, passport photos are pretty awful. And you're not allowed to smile in them. And you have to be all serious. I guess they want you to look like you would be if you were arrested.
Yeah. Don't smile. Act like you did a crime.
Yeah.
I mean, they look similar enough,
sure.
Though.
They look like mugshots.
They're sisters, And so you could easily say, I've dyed my hair. I've put on weight. I've taken off weight. So anyway, she's booked a flight under her sister's name, and she has gone to Costa Rica. She's out of here. And Amy, from here on out, Caitlin is able to stay on the run for 43 days.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean,
honestly, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. The fact that police found her anyway is incredible. And the drama that ends up happening in Costa Rica.
I mean, you guys, you would think that we're getting close to the end of the story, and we are not. So, U.S. Marshals, they're going to head out to Costa Rica, assuming that this is the last place she went. Now, understand, when you leave a flight from the United States of America, you go to another country. From there, you could go anywhere. You could go on foot. You could, I don't know, swim to the next island. I have no idea.
Well, they have open borders, so you could cross over to Nicaragua and all those other places really quickly.
You could literally go anywhere else and possibly be untraced, right? You could. So the U.S. Marshals have, they're in a hurry. They actually upgrade the level of attention to the crime. It says it upgrades it and then offers a reward. So they're on the hunt. They're going to Costa Rica. They are not going on vacation. They did not pack Hawaiian shirts. They're going to find Caitlin Armstrong.
Oh, these poor officers that end up.
Well, they actually have kind of a hard time finding her, which is a throwback to the Pam Phillips case, another one of my favorites. Pam Phillips was eventually apprehended by officers in Europe, also a real estate agent who was up for a crime. So I guess the answer is commit your crime and run, leave the country.
But
don't take my advice.
Yeah.
Well, 43 days later. So the U.S. Marshals are there, and they're trying to track her down. And they're actually sort of tracing her steps from little town to little town.
Well, they get a tip. Do you know this part?
Yeah. I mean, but you can tell it. They're talking to locals, right?
Yeah, they get a tip by an American tourist that had just returned from Costa Rica.
Back to the United States?
Back to the United States. And he said he met a woman in a yoga class and that he had lunch with her but her picture, he was looking at the pictures, they'll put most wanted or whatever. And he's her hair was a little bit more brown than in the picture, and she went by Beth. is what he tells authorities. And he gives them the name of the beach town that he was in, which is Jaco, or I don't know how to, it's with a J, so who knows how to actually pronounce it. But he said he suggested that she check out a town, Santa Teresa Beach, which is about 5 hours away, because he says it's got a lot of, it's a popular yoga community. And in this little town that's 5 hours away, which means that you have to like drive and then take a ferry and then over, it's very, very isolated. But they purposely have it isolated because there's the community, the yoga community there can, they're just more naturalistic lifestyle,
What are you getting at, Amy?
No, I'm just saying, like,
it's an island of only yoga enthusiasts.
No, it's
confusingly,
not,
don't show up if you love yogurt. It's your wrong crowd.
Yeah, but no. But yeah, that's how they figure out, because they were walking around the Capitol
in yoga pants.
No, in Costa Rica.
Sorry. Okay.
The U.S. Marshals. And so they send word to the local police in both areas, Jaco and Santa Teresa. And so when the U.S. Marshals, two of them land and
wearing their Lululemons,
meet up. Sarah is so distracting to this story. I'm so sorry.
I mean, yoga is so critical, apparently, to this story.
But when they show up, they find out that local police have footage of this lunch meeting with this American tourist in Jaco. So
yeah, and there are other tips, kind of like, so this reminds me of, ironically, either one of you, Danny, I'm going to tag you in here if this is true, but like in my like growing up years and teenage years, did you guys ever play the game Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes, it was like the best computer game.
Well, and the show. Like the kids that participated.
Yeah.
It was like a live.
I was super into the computer game, which is dating ourselves here. But that's exactly what it reminds me of, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, because they get to the country and then they got to like follow her and kind of like try and trail her. And they get several tips. They actually, they speak to someone who's kind of in the surfer community, which I think is close to the yoga community you're talking about, not to be confused with yogurt.
Yeah.
And they're kind of asking him questions. He's like, yeah, this woman goes by the name Ari.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's being tracked by different names. And like we said at the beginning, in part one, Costa Rica apparently has quite a large amount of expats, right? Which is Americans that relocate to different countries and just tourists.
Yeah.
You know, and so they're kind of trying to find a needle in a haystack in not that very large of a country.
So the U.S. Marshals issued this alert or whatever to local authorities. They're kind of boots on the ground trying to find some information. The U.S. Marshals don't end up flying out to Costa Rica until like 4 weeks after Caitlin Armstrong goes on the run.
Yeah.
Because that's when they find out the video footage matched the report that they got from this tourist. And then they're like, okay, this is actually real. We're going to fly out. Well, and they gave themselves a week to find her when they were there.
Yeah, thinking probably like it's a small enough country, we should be able to do it. Also, like it's got to be a somewhat extensive process to be set up to send U.S. Marshals out to extradite someone back, right? Like,
yeah, we were looking at the court docs and it was just like pages and pages and pages of things that they have to fill out and swear by and have someone else assigned. And I mean, I don't know anybody who's in the U.S. Marshals, so I wouldn't know how to interview them or ask them questions, but I'm assuming it's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, it's got to be. So taking it back to where we started our story in part one, the Marshals are getting ready to give up. Right? Like they've been here long enough. They have not found her. They've followed all the clues. They've done the best they can. But one of the Marshals has this great idea. She's deeply tied to the yoga community. What if we put out a Facebook ad asking for a yoga instructor for hire?
Okay.
Again, I could just see these guys in their Lululemons with their mats like, let's find us an instructor.
Well, so...
And Caitlin Armstrong.
They are walking like 10 miles a day on these beaches. In
easy
Santa
to do
Teresa.
in very comfy pants.
And one of the officers is attending like at least two yoga classes every day in the morning and in the afternoon to see if she'll show up. They're attending surfing competitions because she has been linked with a surfer. So they're like, okay, we'll go to the surfing competition and see if she shows up. Like, they cannot find her.
It would be my worst nightmare to be put on an undercover assignment to go to yoga twice a day. I haven't seen my toes in like 4 years.
Well,
I'm just too old to bend down and touch them.
All these officers that are there, and they're getting sick, they're getting COVID, there's a threat of a hurricane coming. Like, what does that sound like? Like, they're there and they're miserable and they're not able to, like, they're not watching the surfing competition. They're trying
starving,
to find...
They are well stretched and they just want to go home.
Even came up with a story that they were from the U.S. Embassy. Did you know this part? Okay. So... the U.S. Marshals come up with a story.
Okay.
Because Santa Teresa is very small. They don't want to raise any flags. They don't want her to flee because they can't, she can go anywhere and they can't find her. And so they say that they are with the U.S. Embassy and that a family has lost their daughter and that there's a monetary award and that they've been sent there by the girl's dad to find her, and they're wanting anybody to give any information of, like, and they're not showing her picture, but they're kind of like, do you know anybody that fits this description? Do you know anybody? And because they don't want to alert her, and maybe they are showing her picture, but anyway, regardless, they're trying to lay low and not be like, well, actually.
Sure. They're showing a picture around and some people are recognizing her and some people aren't, but this Facebook ad goes out, and again, they're getting ready to leave, and someone, I guess we'll say an unknown character, but who they suspect to be Caitlin Armstrong, responds to the Facebook ad and wants to meet
it's the
in
same
order to interview for
number
this
that
job.
they think she is using there because she obviously had ditched her phone.
Sure. So again, it's tied all the way back to where we started in part 1. One of the U.S. Marshals goes in. He sits down with Caitlin. They're so almost close to certain that this is here, but she looks different. And Amy, why does she look different?
Well, her hair is cut, it's dyed, and then she has a bandage on her nose.
Caitlin Armstrong has gotten a nose job in between the time that she arrived in Costa Rica until the time that she's apprehended.
And
she's
a
had
brow lift.
cosmetic. Okay, yep. She's had cosmetic surgery.
Yeah.
To change her appearance.
You guys, and this is the kicker.
Did she not pay for her bill?
No. Well,
okay.
I mean, they found the receipt in her room.
Oh, sure. She paid that one.
But while they were walking up and down the beach for 10 miles a day and attending yoga classes and stuff like that, she had left Santa Teresa, went back to the capital of Costa Rica. I can't think of the name right now, where you fly in the international airport.
Yeah.
Found the doctor, and Dr. Jorg Badia, I think is how you say his name, under the alias Allison Page, and had the work done, which means that the whole time that they were there looking for her, that's why she wasn't there and they weren't finding her and they weren't coming across her because she was having her surgery done. And she could have gone anywhere else. If she had gone anywhere else, they wouldn't have found her. But she went back.
So she had dyed her hair. She had had a brow lift. She had had a nose job. The U.S. Marshals have been trying to trace her, and she's in recovery. She's doing yoga. She is, like, altering everything she can about her life. She's changed her name, and she is so close.
Well, we have
to
an
getting
Ari,
away with
a
it.
Beth, and an Allison.
So far, that we know of.
that we know of that have come out.
So Caitlin ends up admitting to the U.S. Marshals that she is, in fact, Caitlin Armstrong, right?
Yeah.
They pressure her. It doesn't take too long. They break her down, and Caitlin is extradited back to the United States.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, back in the United States, Caitlin has been formally charged by the Austin PD on charges of murder and now by the state of Texas, right? Because she fled the country. So now this is a federal crime.
Yeah. And they were really close to, like, this was, when you say last-ditch effort, like, this was literally, like, they were having to go home. They were like, we've been too long. I mean, it's expensive, to have 2 officers, on this thing. Like, they don't give them forever time to try to find it. And she was supposed to, she didn't show up to their first meeting and then had messaged that she had to watch the place where she was staying at or something. And one of the local authorities said, I think I know what the place is called. And that's how they tracked her down.
So Caitlin is back in the United States. She has been transferred from jail in Houston back to Austin, Texas to face charges. And Amy, you would think we're winding down the story here, but guess what?
Oh my gosh. It's so like...
We're not quite done.
Hollywood could not write this script. It would be a bad movie.
It might be a great movie, though. I mean, let's be honest. Like, this has every element of crime from start to finish. Like, it's Carmen Sandiego straight up in real life. It could be done. But you guys, Caitlin's a wild character. She must have been very interesting to know in kind of like in real life, real time, whatever. But Caitlin's not quite done. She's made it this far. She made it to Costa Rica.
She's
got a nose job.
completely the opposite of who Moriah is.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes, for sure. She's not quite going to give up yet, though. She's not going to give up. So it's October 18th, 2023. Caitlin's being held in jail while she's awaiting trial, and it's 8:17 in the morning.
What? Hang on. Her bail is set at $3.5 million.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, we could back up to that. So when she comes back to the United States, a judge does set her bail at $3.5 million, but gives the option if she is bailed out that she has to be on a GPS monitor and has to have a curfew between, I think it's 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. But Caitlin does not get bailed out.
Which is wild that someone that flees the country can even be offered, bail. Most of the time, bail's revoked.
I'm sure there's many reasons and theories behind that, but she does not get bailed out, and yet she's still not ready to give up. So October 18th, okay, it's 8:17 in the morning. Caitlin's being transferred for a medical appointment, right? She's going to be evaluated and whatever. And so 2 officers are taking her between this appointment from the jail to the appointment. And she is in cuffs, but her not around her ankles. Okay. And as a part of the appointment, she's at least briefly able to break free. You guys, Caitlin gets out of the hold of the officers and goes on the run.
Yeah.
Okay. When I say on the run,
there's video footage of this.
Absolutely. And you have to watch it. I'll see if I can get Danny to link it in our notes somehow. I'm going to tell this part of the story with a little bit of levity because honestly, and it's such a dark case and so recent and with such a tragic loss, watching this woman so desperately trying to be smarter and better and faster than everyone else almost has a funny element to it.
It almost looked like a cartoon.
Yeah, it's cartoonish. It's like a circus. She continues to be caught, but she thinks she can get away with it. So Caitlin is seen, and she's very in shape, right? She's athletic. She's been staying in shape while she's been being held in jail. She's seen stripping her black and white jail uniform as she runs. She runs up a small hill. Officers are in pursuit. Okay, the corrections officers are chasing her. One trips and falls. Caitlin scales a 6-foot wall while the officers are chasing her. Caitlin runs for almost a mile, and she is not caught for 10 minutes on foot.
Yeah.
In Texas. And I've listened to many prison break stories. Honestly, they're fascinating. You wait until you break out of prison that's in an isolated spot in the woods.
Yeah.
This one ran right for downtown Texas, Austin, Texas. She literally ran right into traffic. She was seen everywhere. So, of course, she's apprehended again. And now, court officials, prosecutors, everyone's even more pissed. They're we've had enough.
She's clearly a flight risk.
So, at this point, she's been on the run twice. She's going to go to trial. She's going to face charges. And Amy, I actually listened to this story a couple of years ago when it came out. And then, of course, as we're preparing for this episode, sat down and did a lot of research, listened to a lot of podcasts, which were great, watched the material again. But I kind of left off at the trial. And so from here, you're going to take it and tell me about the trial. It's a Surprise Sarah and Danny segment from here on out. Why don't you tell us what has happened since the second time Caitlin has been apprehended?
Yeah, so you would think, looking at this, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, right? It's Caitlin's video. Well,
I mean, being in Costa Rica.
So listen, though.
Okay,
I'm going to tell you because this is the part that I don't know if you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say circumstantial evidence if I was a police, or an attorney for sure, just to say like, yeah, as far as you could blame it on anybody. Is it Caitlin? Is it Colin? Is it whatever, And Colin, the whole time he was being interviewed, and even the second time he went in with his lawyer, was like, no, I was on a motorcycle. I didn't drive the Jeep. It was a Barbie Jeep. It was like a he said, she said scenario. But Caitlin's defense attorney sets up with the whole reason that Caitlin went to Costa Rica was because she feared for her life, and that's why she changed her appearance.
Yep,
and
that's right.
why she had dramatic surgery, and that's why she did all this, and that's why she fled really quickly, and that's why she had to get out of town, and that's why she took her sister's passport. And they have this whole thing.
Well, she was claiming she was afraid of Colin.
Yes.
That he had murdered Moriah, and then he was going to come after her.
Well, and that he had been abusive in their relationship.
Right.
And so this is why she did it. And I think it was a genius move on the defense attorney.
Like a legal strategy.
Yeah.
Sure.
As far as that goes, until she tried to escape again while in custody, while, going to a doctor's appointment.
Story.
It totally does. It totally does. That part, I think, goes in. And then here is the part of the trial, because we have timestamps from the Jeep. Now, remember, the Jeep was sold to CarMax under value, $12,200. And the police, it took them a minute to figure out who had bought it from CarMax and to find the vehicle.
Can I just say one thing before we get to the trial? Because I don't know much else after this, but I do just want to say, like, we recognize we're in the state of Texas, but at this point, as Caitlin is facing trial, there is no death penalty on the table. So this is not a death penalty case, interestingly enough. I don't know more about why or why not that might have been. But I do just want to note for our listeners that she's not facing the death penalty.
Yeah.
So tell me the rest.
So Caitlin, or Caitlin's Jeep, right? This is what comes out. So police find that there's GPS data, and it has tracked every turn that was made on the night of Moriah's murder. At 6:33 p.m., it left Caitlin's house and headed downtown, and then an hour later changed directions. So, just for our audience, because I don't think you mentioned the time, Moriah had texted Caitlin Cash now, her friend that she was staying with, at 5:05 p.m. on the 11th, and said, I think I'm going swimming with Colin. There's a timestamp on the door that Moriah left the house at 5:55 p.m. And then Colin says that they swam for about 30 to 40 minutes and that they were leaving the restaurant. There's a video footage of them leaving the restaurant at 8:10 p.m. Okay, so here's where we are. So at 6:33 p.m., she heads downtown, and she stays for roughly an hour before it changes directions.
Do they think that she's looking for them?
Nobody comes out and says that, but that is the theory. That is the theory, that she doesn't trust Colin, that she's found out that he is with Moriah, and that she has turned around.
Okay.
She heads to East Austin. She doesn't go home. She heads to East Austin, which East Austin is where Caitlin Cash lives.
Okay.
And the Jeep is seen, once there, the Jeep circled the neighborhood, according to GPS, and video footage from a doorbell cam, passing Caitlin Cash's home over and over again. And then the GPS at 8:41, the GPS shows that the Jeep parked down the block and in a church parking lot. And the GPS stopped and the ignition was turned off until 9:17 when it left the murder area. So from 8:41 to 9:17, it was turned off. Now, it shows video footage that they were leaving the restaurant at 8:10. Caitlin Cash has a door that has some sort of like locking mechanism or whatever that will alert like when it's unlocked or locked or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Or when it's opened. And so that door is stamped at 8:36.
Okay.
And so anyway, it's parked at 8:41. Another footage shows the Jeep driving by at 8:37, so that gives it 3 minutes to go down and park, and then it's turned off till 8:17. And here's the sad part. There ended up being an audio recording of the murder. The sounds that were recording on a neighbor's camera. At 9:15 p.m., they hear a female scream and hear 2 gunshots. There's a pause for 6 seconds and then another gunshot.
Which is so awful because that means that Caitlin, right, who has been convicted of this crime. So I'm not saying allegedly. She's now been convicted, right? Like she took 2 shots, took a deep breath, and then another one.
And it comes out during trial that she did go to gun ranges and that she could shoot from, she practiced shooting from at least 20 feet away. And so, but we know that they were within pretty close proximity to the gunshot wounds were pretty close range.
Yeah. And I mean, they're in an apartment.
Yeah. And if someone's answering the door
quarters.
and, you know, whatever. But, you know, Colin, who thought he was so smart hiding the fact that he, you know, he has said it was a platonic relationship. Mariah's friends kind of backed that up as far as her end, but he was still deceiving
Caitlin,
his significant other.
Yeah.
He apparently had an iPad that, you know, with all Apple products, which I hope Apple doesn't come for us, because they have a contract. Like if on TV their phones are being used, like it can't be used to promote any violence or negative things. So or whatever.
In a popular fruit related phone company and technology trend. Okay.
So the devices are linked. So he had changed it to Christine Wall, and was deleting text messages, but the text messages weren't being deleted from his iPad.
Oh, Colin, come on, man.
And so Caitlin was able to.
That's how she saw it.
See all the text.
I remember that now.
From the iPad, and then she was using an app called Strava. I don't know how to actually pronounce it, but it's a popular like bicycling app,
right? That
tracks like where you bike. And I have a friend that uses it too.
Yeah,
and so she like bikes all over, and it will show her the grid that she and then she'll post it, and she'll be like, "This is how long I was gone," or whatever.
Right.
And you have the really creative types that will bike around, and it will be the finished image is like a picture.
No way.
You know? Yeah, like it's incredible. Like Danny's shaking, like nodding his head.
So average.
Well, this is the thing, because Moriah was a public figure.
Yes.
She did not have her profile private, because she wanted people to see, like, look here's where I bike today, and you can mimic the same bike. She was so about community.
She was.
That she didn't realize that was actually putting her in danger. And it was like Caitlin Armstrong was stalking her through
the app.
This app. Anyway, all these things start popping up over during the course of the trial, and all these awful details. It takes the jury only 118 minutes to find Caitlin guilty. And this is the part that Texas law, and I'm not sure like what part of Texas law this is, but Texas law shows that once you're found guilty, at least in this particular case, the defendant, who is Caitlin Armstrong, could either choose to have the sentencing done by a judge or choose to have the sentencing done by the jury. Yeah. And she chooses to have the sentencing done by the jury after she's found guilty. And I think she thought like maybe the jury would more likely buy her defense of, I didn't actually do this was Colin.
Right, like, yeah, the concept there, and we see this come up enough in crime, is like the judge has one opinion. And that judge could be very strict or more lenient, or, you know, but a jury you kind of have different odds because there's 12 of them, and they can debate back and forth what they think the ultimate sentence could be.
It did come out during trial that they were able to trace that at that time, Colin did receive a phone call. And he claims he was on his motorcycle and whatever, but he did receive a phone call during the time that Moriah was actually murdered, so that he couldn't have been the one to kill him. So that's what the prosecution was trying to prove to kind of eliminate Caitlin Armstrong's defense.
Well, and his motorcycle was seen on footage at some point. So
it was seen on footage from the restaurant that they had eaten at.
Yeah.
So anyway, the jury convicts her and then sentences her to 90 years. And so far, all of her appeals have been denied. It's a fresh case. Appeals process takes a long time, so we don't have a lot of the appeal documents that we normally have in cases. But so far, her appeals have been denied.
Sure. And you're right. I mean, so she was sentenced, like convicted and sentenced last year, 2023.
Yeah.
So it is fresh, and the appeals process does take a long time. But what we do know is she ran on the run not once but twice. Like you said, the second time was kind of the nail in the coffin, if you will, because her defense was that she was terrified. And honestly, like you said, it was a legal strategy. And we don't know what she was telling her defense lawyers. She could have been telling them that, and they believed it. Oftentimes, defense lawyers are like, don't tell me the story. I'm going to tell you the story. Right? And it is legal strategy because everyone has the right, as a part of our Constitution, to a fair defense, right? But the legal strategy actually, in certain cases, maybe with different evidence, might have worked. That might have worked for the jury, right? But the fact that she tried to flee from jail and ran on foot straight into downtown traffic.
I think it hurt her case.
It really hurt her case, and it's going to hurt her appeals, right? Because there's going to be oftentimes, like, I don't know this for sure will happen in the future. Of course, I don't have a crystal ball, but, officers or detectives can go to the parole board and speak. Like, she ran twice.
Yeah. Well, and out of this whole thing, Moriah's family, they're trying to get to this race that she was going to do within a few days. They asked the race organizers to still carry on the race.
Yeah.
They ran, the racers biked several miles just in silence and just in memory of Moriah. Moriah's parents and brother have started a foundation called the Moriah Wilson Foundation. We'll put the links on our show notes. It's a beautiful way that she was planning on moving back to Vermont instead of in California where she was living. She wanted to give back to the community. She had found this passion that she wanted to do to help people get outdoors, and whether it was biking or skiing or whatever. But and so you can either donate to the foundation. They do rides, memorial rides, in her honor. And they also give, so there's like a part on the application where you can request donations. So if you are starting like a biking thing in your underprivileged community or whatever, you can apply for some money from her foundation. But anyway, she was a beautiful, beautiful individual that, a week before her 26th birthday was taken too short. So
I do have a note here. So Moriah lost her life on May 11th, right? I do have a note here that in the cycling community, this was an article taken from kind of like a popular magazine or online source. But on June 3rd, cyclists at Unbound Gravel in Emporia, Kansas, performed a tribute ride for Wilson right after she'd passed. And there have been since many tribute rides and cyclists riding in memory of Moriah. So absolutely beautiful human being. Really tragic story that kind of in, as they say, right, like the prime of her lifetime at a time where she was up and coming into this incredible career as an athlete. She tragically lost her life in all reality out of jealousy. Yeah. Right. And out of a real estate agent that couldn't control their feelings.
Yeah.
And that can't pay her plastic surgery bills. So, Amy, that is the tragic loss in case of Moriah Wilson. Anna Moriah Wilson is her full name. And at the end of all of our episodes, we give our takeaways. They can be real estate related, it can be crime related, or it can be both. So why don't you go ahead and give me your takeaway?
Yeah, I think my takeaway for this case is, it's a little bit of both. It's about accurate information. Even though this case is fairly new, there was differing information, differing dates, different timelines, different, all of these different things. And we try to be as honest and give as accurate information as we possibly can, because we don't want to retell the inaccurate information.
Yeah, of course.
But also, too, when it comes to real estate, there's several sites that may not have the right information or the right statistics or the right, when you're advertising and you can tell it's like AI generated instead of genuinely talked about from an agent that has actually had boots on the ground, seen the place. And so there's a lot of deception that can go on in both, obviously murder and in real estate. So that's my takeaway.
It's a really good takeaway. Like, challenge yourself in our day and age to actually seek the accurate information.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall for the simple answer, and I'm not coming for AI right now, but I don't know if you guys in the room with me here have like Googled something somewhat recently and let AI give you the answer, and you're like, that's not even close, or it's like a version of the answer you were looking for,
Or it gaslights you, the Mandela effect, where it's like what you think is real and it's not, like, I don't know.
Yeah. So it's like exactly what you're saying is just challenge yourself to actually find the real information. And I think that would make for more personal satisfaction and success, career-wise and in your personal life. That's a great takeaway. My takeaway is kind of more crime-related, if you will, but, going back to the deception that was happening in the relationship with Colin and Caitlin, and how Caitlin, no excuses, absolutely no excuses for what she did, but, this intense emotion that she had escalated to a point where she took someone's life unnecessarily, so brutally, 3 shots, so awfully, right? Like, that emotion was generated out of deception. And of course, I've always felt this way, but not that this case brought this truth to me. I'm just saying, this reminds me of situations where it's just not worth it.
No, it's not. And no guy is worth it. Like,
for
honestly,
us,
at the end of the day,
yeah. No romantic partner, no relationship, no, even outside of romantic relationships, you could go as far as like partnerships. We see this intense emotion that can rise up in business where then, because we have several stories on our list. If you haven't read all the way through all of our 200 subjects so far, like there's several like real estate developers or, who end up murdering over millions of dollars. Like the intense emotion that comes out of deception.
Yeah.
Like it starts all the way back at one. So saving, regardless of how Colin viewed his relationship with Caitlin at the time, they were living in the house together and they'd obviously had a history. And to be saving, sorry, Colin, but whatever, like it's out there in all the materials you read. So, this isn't just me saying it, but to save Moriah's contact information differently and then not even.
Well, it goes to show, like, even though nothing was happening, the appearance of it says
exactly.
different.
That's what I'm saying. The deception created this intense emotion that ended in the loss of life. Like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. And obviously, Caitlin had her agency to choose what she wanted to do.
Exactly.
Regardless of what Colin was doing.
Absolutely.
But it was unnecessary fuel to the fire.
That's what I mean. Like, being honest and Amy, you and I often say to each other, like, clarity is kindness, to be direct is kind. Like, don't allow like the easy lure of deception to get you to a place where there's no turning back.
Yeah.
So that's my takeaway. Amy, this episode was up and down and in and out in different countries and different noses and different hair colors. It was a fascinating case. And I guess, from here on out, we'll probably hear about it from time to time and appeals and in the real estate world. But
we'll update our audience.
If anything comes about. But if there's another jailbreak, a third jailbreak, we'll definitely update you. But that is the story of Moriah Wilson. So, Amy, let's get back to real estate.
All right.
Okay. See you next week.
Bye, guys.